Hello and welcome back to F1 Every Week. I am your host Ben Wevel, and today I'm going to be analysing and reviewing round 20 of the 2022 Formula 1 World Championship, the Mexican Grand Prix. The race was first on the calendar in 1963, won by Jim Clark at Mexico City's Magdalena Mixhuca as the F1 season finale, and continued on until 1970, returning a decade and a half later under the new name Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, paying tribute to the great racing family who were sadly lost during their careers. The state of the track declined over the following years, and the race was cancelled until it rose once again, redesigned by Hermann Tilke for 2015. Max Verstappen has won the Grand Prix 3 times, including in 2021, which saw carnage at turn number 1, with Bottas spun out by Ricciardo. You can listen to the podcast on the streaming platform of your choice, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Now, without further ado, let's get into episode 80. There is a lot to unpack before this Grand Prix weekend, but the cost cap was again the first order of business. After a few weeks of waiting, the FIA revealed that Red Bull had failed to account for £5.3 million worth of excluded costs in 13 areas, including cost of use of the power units and, according to Christian Horner, sick pay for a certain member of staff, as well as catering services. However, the FIA conceded that Red Bull have effectively implemented their notional tax credit, bringing the breach down to £463,000. For this minor breach of the cost cap, Red Bull were handed a £7 million fine, which they are required to pay within the next 30 days, alongside a 10% wind tunnel and CFD penalty, which brings their testing time from 70% of 7th place as the Constructors' Champion to 63% of 7th place. In a press conference on Friday morning, Christian was again trying to appeal to our cold hearts, and even though I can see that Red Bull have made a mistake in terms of their accounting, someone's going to be fired, the hypothesis that this change had no effect on the car's performance is completely preposterous, and as one of the biggest teams in Formula 1, they need to do a more thorough job in upholding the law. Aston Martin have also been reprimanded for their procedural breach and were fined $450,000 in an accepted breach agreement, which Red Bull also fell to the bureaucratically wordedness of. Back in August, it was announced that Audi would be the power unit supplier of Sauber from 2026 onwards. But it was also revealed on Wednesday that Sauber would become Audi's official works team, and that Audi planned to purchase a stake in Sauber Group. In my opinion, it's very wise that Audi have swooped in such a way, as they now have a built-in infrastructure with which to work as a new team, rather than being forced to start from scratch, as many of the failed Formula 1 teams from the early 2010s, they did not have this inbuilt infrastructure with which to work. It still remains to be seen whether or not Porsche are able to weasel their way into Formula 1, but this move from Audi could be a catalyst for a host of manufacturers attempting to enter the sport before the regulation shift of 2026. Alpine was fuming after a Haas protest against Fernando Alonso's wing mirror in the US Grand Prix resulted in a 30-second time penalty for the Spaniard, stripping him of his excellent recovery to 7th place. However, this decision was reversed on Friday, as it was revealed that Haas had lodged their protest 52 minutes after the Grand Prix rather than the allotted half an hour, invalidating the claim and gifting that P7 back to Fernando. Haas team principal Günther Steiner added another twist to the tale in Friday practice, as he revealed that the race director himself, Niels Wittich, had informed the team that they were able to process with an hour. They were able to protest the wing mirror of Fernando Alonso within an hour after the race. So this connotes that Haas have been led astray, and with Kevin Magnussen having been given the black and orange flag on multiple occasions in the past, I'm sure that Günther feels very hard done by after this decision was made. The FIA have been making an absolute mockery of things in the past few years, and need some stability if they are going to make this new era comfortable for fans, drivers and teams alike. Once more, this weekend saw a number of young drivers take part in Free Practice 1. Liam Lawson, who is currently 7th in the Formula 2 Championship, entering the final round in Abu Dhabi, secured 16th in the AlphaTauri, but stopped on track with 3 minutes remaining in the session, bringing out the red flag, and setting fire to his brakes in the process. Logan Sargent was just behind the Kiwi in the Williams, and Nick de Vries, who joins AlphaTauri next year, was P18 in the Merc. Jack Doohan was confined to the garage for the majority of the session, as Alpine saw an abnormal spike in the power unit data, and he was joined in an early exit by Pietro Fittipaldi in the Haas, who suffered an MG UK failure, stopping out on track and only putting in a lap time good enough for being 2 seconds behind any other driver and 6 seconds behind Sainz in P1. Charles Leclerc had a major crash at turn 8 during the FP2 tyre test, bringing out the red flag and resulting in heavy damage for both the Techbro barriers and the rear of Charles's car, after taking second in the initial session. This is yet another major mistake from Charles and will have ruined his confidence going into what might have been one of the most competitive Grand Prix of the season, as Mercedes were always likely to be in the mix thanks to their newly revised front wing design, which saw George Russell take fastest in the final 2 practice sessions, FP3 being a 1-2 for the Mercs, who were looking at home despite being at a drag-centred circuit. Zhou Guanyu was struggling in free practice as well, pulling off the track at the stadium section with hydraulic failure in FP2, his second incident of the weekend, after stopping at the end of the pit lane on Friday morning. He hit another wall prior to qualifying, not literally, complaining about an issue before he left the garage in FP3. Aston Martin are looking menacing at the moment, drawing ever closer to Alfa Romeo in the championship, so the team really have to iron out these problems if they want to increase the gap to 7th place. Another team who have fallen to the mighty Aston Martin is Haas, and Kevin Magnussen was forced to take a 5-place grid penalty after the car stopped on track, with Pietro Fittipaldi in the cockpit in FP1, with Schumacher also experiencing some issues as he spun out at turn 11, flat spotting his tyres, another in a long line of mistakes, which could see Nico Hülkenberg back in Formula 1 for 2023. Finally, aptly for this weekend, F1 announced that the Mexican Grand Prix would remain on the calendar until 2025. Mexico is often a bit of a hit-or-miss race, but with the increased appeal created by Checo, it was always likely to make a return. Now onto qualifying, and Verstappen led early on, with a time in the low 119s, but Schumacher was eliminated. Despite going 6th to start off with, He had his lap time deleted for track limits at turn 2, whilst his teammate, who would take a grid penalty anyway, made it through. Both Aston Martin's and Williams cars were also eliminated, with Albon in 19th going off the track on his final flyer. Whilst this is Sebastian Vettel's first qualifying session in Mexico outside of the top 11, his teammate Lance Stroll has still been unable to surpass Q1 since his debut at the circuit in 2017. Hamilton led Q2, whilst Ricciardo was knocked out again, with a 4th straight lap time outside of the top 10. Zhou qualified decently on his first outing in Mexico City in 12th, and the two AlphaTauris took their second double Q2 knockout in a row. K-Mag's 15th is the first time a Haas car has made it into the second stage of quali in Mexico, but it would all be for nothing due to that engine penalty. Finally, for Q3, and Verstappen led the whole way through, securing P1 with a 1:17.7, his first pole position in Mexico. Mercedes had one of their best qualifying sessions of the season with 2 and 3. Russell, also having looked on for pole, had it not been for a mistake at turn 12, which scuppered his final flying lap. Toto Wolff said that Mexico was Mercedes' best chance for a win this season, and this put them in a great position to challenge Verstappen on Sunday. Perez equalled his best qualifying at his home Grand Prix with 4th, followed by the two Ferraris, with Sainz in front, split by Valtteri Bottas, who took his best grid position since Miami, and his second top 10 in a row. Norris was P8, his 9th Q3 appearance on the bounce, beating out the two Alpine rivals. Now onto my driver of qualifying, and it's Valtteri Bottas. There were numerous murmurings up and down the grid that the Alfa Romeos would be quick this weekend, but P6 from Valtteri shows us that he can pull results out of the bag, despite his serious mid-season slump. Whilst Aston Martin powered forward, the promise of points is a necessary one if Sauber wish to remain in P6 in the standings when the checkered flag falls in Abu Dhabi. Now for my team of qualifying, and it's Mercedes. Even though Toto set his sights on pole and the win, a 2-3 in front of both Ferraris is a good step in the right direction, and as I commented on earlier, it stood them in great stead for at least a podium, if not the win on Sunday. Finally, for my struggle of qualifying, and it's Alex Albon. Alongside Alfa Romeo, Williams were dubbed as the surprise package of the weekend, with positive performances at high altitude, heavy straight line speed circuits in the past. But a mistake cost Alex dearly. With Aston Martin and Haas struggling this weekend, I think it could have been an easy Q2 for the Thai driver. Now onto the race itself, and it was Max Verstappen who broke the record for the most victories in one season with 14, bringing his lifetime tally up to 34 in the process, as well as breaking the record for the most points scored in one season. The Dutchman now sitting at 416 compared to Hamilton's 2019 total of 413. The now two-time world champion is over 136 points ahead of his Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez, who took his second podium in a row at Mexico, his 10th of the year, just behind Lewis Hamilton, who moved 4 points past Carlos Sainz to 5th place in the Drivers' Championship with 2nd. Verstappen led from the line, whilst George Russell, who finished the race 4th, his 4th Grand Prix without a podium, dropped 2 places from lights out, thanks to a beautiful move around the outside from Checo and Lewis Hamilton getting in his fellow Brits' way at the start of the Grand Prix. The home hero pitted for the first time on lap 24, but a 5-second stop cost the Mexican a solid chance at 2nd place come the checkered flag, even though he swiftly set about rectifying his team's error with a pass on Leclerc for 5th, 3 laps later. Verstappen was complacent